Good evening, and welcome to Political Forum for Wednesday, May 6, 2015. We welcome tonight as our special guest the Honorable Toni Preckwinkle, President of the Cook County Board of Directors.
Good evening.
Welcome back to Political Forum. My name is Rod Joy. I serve as a board member here at CAN TV. Political Forum is a live, interactive call-in program that's designed to connect you directly with your elected officials. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we hope that you'll have an opportunity to learn more about President Preckwinkle and her views on some of the most urgent challenges and opportunities facing the city and the county. Above all, this program is about fostering a strong sense of civic engagement. We don't want to talk at you, we want to talk with you. So we invite your questions and your comments for President Preckwinkle. You can join the conversation at the number at the bottom of your screen, 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. President Preckwinkle, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know sometimes Cook County is described as a stealth unit of government. So for folks who are not familiar with the county, what can you tell people about it?
Sure. First of all, thank you for joining us this evening. The county historically has had two basic missions. One is public health and the other is public safety. About a third of our budget goes to health care, about 40% plus goes to public safety. We have Stroger Hospital on the near west side, Provident Hospital on the mid-south side, and Cermak Hospital in the jail, and then we have clinics across the county. But principally what we're doing these days is not simply providing care in our own facilities, but being part of the county care managed care program. This is an expansion of Medicaid that's part of the Affordable Care Act, and we have more than 130 partners, community-based clinics, safety net hospitals, and academic hospitals that are part of our managed care program. And again, it's called County Care. It's a Medicaid expansion program, and it's the direction in which we're moving as healthcare reforms in this country. So that's healthcare. On the criminal justice side, we run the largest single-site jail in the country, the largest unified court system in the country, and we have been working hard over the last 4 years both to improve the delivery of court services and to make our court systems more fair. So we've been working on criminal justice reform. And let me just say, when we began in 2010, we had 10,000 people in the jail on a daily basis, the overwhelming majority waiting trial for nonviolent crimes. When people think of our jail, I think they think that people are serving sentences, but that's not true. Only 10% of the people in our jail are serving a sentence. 90% are awaiting trial. And of those awaiting trial, 70% are awaiting trial for nonviolent offenses. They are accused but not convicted. In our system, that means they're presumed innocent until proven guilty. So our jail historically has overwhelmingly contained people who are awaiting trial for nonviolent offenses. And we agreed in March of 2011, all of the actors in the criminal justice arena, the state's attorney, the public defender, the sheriff, the clerk of the court, the chief judge, all agreed that what we needed to do was reduce our jail population. And we have been working on that and had some success more recently, which I can talk about later.
Great. And so we want to dive into public health issues and criminal justice reform issues. But I think we have a caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Hey, my question is definitely along the lines of sort of prison reform. I recently saw a documentary with Sheriff Tom Dart where I'm pretty sure that he said that the Cook County jails is the largest provider of mental health services, like in the country. And I know he talked a lot about how to ways to maybe kind of reform that. But my question is, I know we're facing budget cuts, on the state level, and things are tight on the city level. And so, how do you even approach addressing these problems when it seems like there's no money to go around to address them?
Well, one of the real difficulties that the county has faced is that state investments and city investments in mental health and behavioral services have decreased. So the state has closed mental hospitals, the city has closed clinics, and as a result, there's a greater burden on our healthcare system and our criminal justice system. Because people who don't have access to behavioral health services and need them often end up in our emergency room on the public health side or act out and end up in our jail. It's true that the county jail is one of the largest providers of mental health services in the state. But you have to understand that those services are provided not by the sheriff, but by our public health system at Cermak Jail. So we provide, through our public health system, healthcare services to people in the jail. And one of the things that we've tried to do in county care, again, this is Medicaid expansion, so it's a program for people who have modest incomes, is provide mental health and behavioral health services. So we've enrolled 10,000 people who are in the jail in county care so that when they got out, they could get mental health services in communities near them. And we hope that that's a way of reducing recidivism, reducing people returning to the jail, because now, through Medicaid expansion, through county care, they can get the behavioral health services that they need in their neighborhoods.
This is Political Forum, a live interactive call-in program. Our guest tonight is Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. We invite your questions and comments. I think we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. President, my question is from the community aspect. I work with the city of Chicago, volunteers for the court watch. You know, a lot of the court watch participants are on fixed income. Sometime last year, we were told that we no longer can take our phones with us. We have to rent them, put them in the lockers. Do you know that's $3 that most of us do not have to give because we're on a fixed income?
It's a very specific question.
Yes. Let me just say that the chief judge ordered that people could not bring their phones into the courtroom. First of all, to maintain decorum and order in the courtrooms. The chief judge did not want people talking on their cell phones during trials or during hearings. But secondly, because there was some concern that people might use the cameras on their cell phones to take pictures of witnesses or participants in trials. And so we didn't want to endanger those who had come forward to be witnesses or who were subpoenaed to come into the courtroom. So this was a decision made by the chief judge, and I'm sorry it's had such a detrimental effect on court watch volunteers.
Let's go back for a minute to public health, and I think a success story for the county has been the ability to expand the number of insured patients. Talk a little bit more about the county care program and why that's a good news story for the county.
Well, let me just say, we have about 180,000 people now who are part of county care. Those are single adults, married adults without children, women and children, our family health plan, and seniors and people with disabilities. So those are the three categories of folks who are now in county care. 180,000 people who either did not have insurance previously or had it only sporadically. And so we're serving a considerable portion of the uninsured population in Cook County through county care. And for the first time in the history of our healthcare system, more of our patients are insured than uninsured, for the first time in our history. And that's a result of the fact that county care and the Medicaid expansion enables people to have insurance who previously have not had access to insurance. And again, this is supported by the Affordable Care Act, by President Obama's healthcare reform plan.
And if individuals wanted to learn more about the county care program or contact you, how can they get a hold of you?
312-603-5500. 312-603-5500.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about criminal justice reform and sentencing reform. I know that's an issue that you're very passionate about. They say politics makes strange bedfellows, and I think for this issue of criminal justice reform is bringing together a diverse coalition of stakeholders across political lines. Why is that such an important issue for you, and what are some of the specific measures that you're advocating for?
Okay. So the first thing, let me say, we have 5% of the world's population in the United States. So 5 out of every 100 people in the entire world live in the United States. But we have 25%, so that's 25 out of every 100 people in the world who are in jail or prison. So we have a pretty modest part of the population, and a quarter of the people in jail or prison. So we're doing something terribly wrong in this country. Unless you think Americans are more likely to be criminals than people elsewhere in the world, we're doing something terribly wrong. And furthermore, the people in our jails are disproportionately black and brown. In our jail in Cook County, 86%, I'll say that again, 86% of the people in jail are black and brown. And only half the population of the county is black or brown. So that the population of Cook County, 50% of it is black and brown, but 86% of the people in our jail are black and brown. And in the city of Chicago, where African Americans comprise 33% of the population, there's 72% of the police stops and 73% of the arrests. So I'll say that again. African Americans in the city of Chicago are 33% of the population, but 72% of the people stopped by police and 73% of the people arrested. So we've got some real challenges in this country and right here in Cook County around minority impact. That is, how the criminal justice system disproportionately impacts black and brown individuals. So we have been working hard to try to be sure that people who are accused of crimes and who are poor, and that's a lot of the people who are accused of crimes, do not spend the time between their bond hearings and the disposition of their case, their first preliminary hearing or the final outcome of their case, in jail, simply because they can't pay their bond. So we've worked a lot on bond court reform, and we're moving toward having a model court this summer which will not be based on cash bonds, but the risk that you will either do harm to the community or yourself while you're out between your bond hearing and the disposition of your case. And let me just say, there are other places in the country, Washington, D.C. and in Kentucky, for example, where they've moved away from cash bonds, and they have not seen any rise in people who don't show up for their trial or who commit crimes between the time of their offense of which they're accused and the disposition of their case. So we've got, as I said, we've got some challenges in this country around disproportionate impact of the criminal justice system on black and brown communities. Same challenges here in Cook County. We're trying to address them in part through bond court reform and also through a change and movement away from cash bonds.
I think another thing that you've been vocal on is this notion of automatic transfers of juveniles to adult court. And why is that important?
The Juvenile Justice Institute did a study, a 3-year study, I think it was 2010 to 2013. 257 young people in Cook County were tried as adults, juveniles that were tried as adults. Of those, 256 were black and brown. 256. So this automatic transfer, this idea that young people accused of serious crimes ought to be tried in adult court, again, has a disproportionate impact on black and brown young people. A disproportionate impact. So we've gone to Springfield, and we hope in this legislative session there'll be approval for a measure that severely limits the number of crimes which young people can be automatically transferred to adult court for. And those would be aggravated battery, that's shooting at somebody and not killing them, murder, and aggravated sexual assault. So that is sexual assault with a firearm. Those 3 crimes in the bill that we're trying to move through the state legislature would result in automatic transfer to adult court. But the other things for which young people in the county have been tried as adults would no longer be tried in adult court but in juvenile court. And this is not a small thing, because the juvenile courts are more efficient than our adult courts. And young people accused of crimes tend to have their cases disposed of in a month or less, while in adult court the cases can drag on for many, many months.
This is Political Forum, a live interactive call-in program. I think we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question concerning probably the jewel of Cook County, the forest preserves. And I just heard recently that my family might be able to camp in the forest preserves. Can you explain this?
Sure.
One of the best-kept secrets of county government.
Yeah. So surprising to me when I got this job. If you're president of the county, or if you're a county commissioner, you're also a leader of the forest preserve. So I'm president not only of the county, but of the forest preserve district. And we're blessed in Cook County, and I mean really blessed. 11% of our land is in the forest preserves. So we have broad areas in the southwest, in particular, and northwest sides of forest preserves, but they're scattered around the county. Not so much in the city of Chicago, unfortunately, but in a sort of emerald ring around the city. 11% of our land. And when I came into office, I said, we really have to do better in terms of attracting people to the forest preserves, because they're kind of a hidden gem. And while people in communities adjacent to the preserves are aware of them, other people in the county who would enjoy the preserves either don't know anything about them or have never had any experiences in the preserves. So we've put a lot of energy on helping people understand that this is a place where you can come with your family for free, hike our trails, fish in our lakes, bike, all kinds of activities. And we're actually trying to expand the number of programs that are available to people. We just opened this year campgrounds around the county. Previously we had some pretty decrepit campgrounds that were only available to scouts, but now we have campgrounds that are available not just to scouts but to church groups and families. And we're going to have 5 of them. Not all of them are open right now, but we're going to have 5 of these campgrounds, tent camping, cabin camping. They're just beautiful facilities, and we're opening them in succession this spring and summer. So you'll have an opportunity to come out to the forest preserves and not just engage in day activities, but also to do overnight camping.
Let's go back to criminal justice reform for a second, and you spoke passionately about why this is a racial equity issue, but it's also a financial issue, because if you reduce the jail population, it saves the county money. So can you talk about why it makes good financial sense in addition to being an equity issue?
Sure. But the thing you need to understand is we spend more than $500 million a year on the jail and the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center. That's $500 million on the jail and the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center. It costs $143 a day to keep somebody in the adult jail. It costs $600 a day to keep somebody in the Juvenile Temporary Detention Facility. In the Juvenile Temporary Detention Facility, we have to provide people with schooling and behavioral and mental health services, as well as food and shelter. So it's considerably more expensive. But these are very expensive operations, and to the extent that we can provide services to people in their communities and keep them out of the JTDC or out of our adult jail, we need to do that. Again, people who are accused of crimes and not convicted, if you have money, you're out in the community. If you don't have money, you often spend that time in our jail, which is why we're moving away from cash bonds.
This is Political Forum, a live interactive call-in program. Our special guest tonight is President Toni Preckwinkle. We invite your questions and comments for President Preckwinkle. Please join us at 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. I think we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Regarding the violence on the west side, Commissioner Boykin has talked about utilizing the Cook County Sheriff's Police to keep streets safe. What are your thoughts about that?
The City of Chicago is responsible for public safety within the bounds of the City of Chicago. And I think that Commissioner Boykin needs to address his concerns to the Superintendent, Gary McCarthy, and to the Mayor, Rahm Emanuel, if he has concerns about safety in the communities that he represents. Our Sheriff's Police patrol in unincorporated Cook County, that is, those areas outside any city, town, or village, and in a couple of suburbs in the southern part of the county at the request of the local government that did not have the money to run a police force themselves. We have pretty modest police operations, and as I said, public safety within the bounds of the City of Chicago is the responsibility of the Chicago Police Department.
Speaking of the police and interactions with the police, it seems like every time you turn on the television or open a newspaper, you're confronted with an issue of tensions between particularly the African American community and law enforcement. And whether it's Ferguson, Missouri, or Baltimore, Maryland, we're reminded time and time again of tensions that exist. And I think today, Chicago made history by passing an ordinance to provide reparations for victims of John Burge and the torture chapter in Chicago. How do you think Chicago is doing as it relates to police and community relations? And what else can we do as a society to address broader issues of social justice and equity?
I served in the City Council for 19 years, and always disturbed me greatly that we spent millions and millions of dollars every year paying settlements to citizens who were abused by police officers. Now, let me just say, as I said, I was alderman for 19 years. I worked very closely with the Chicago Police Department and the University of Chicago Police, and I will tell you that 95% of the people that I dealt with who were officers are good and decent people who struggle every day to do a very, very difficult job well. And 5% of them should not be police officers. And the problem is that those 5% carry weapons and are responsible disproportionately for the incidents with tensions between police and community residents, or terrible tragedies such as occurred in Ferguson, Missouri, or Baltimore, or New York, or here in Chicago in the case of Laquan McDonald, for example, where the City Council recently paid $5 million to the mother of a victim of a police shooting even before she brought suit against the city, which shows you how damning the evidence must have been. So we have some real issues in police-community relations, and we have to understand that there has to be cooperation between the police and the residents, and that's cooperation that the police have to earn. Let me just say, if you look at the communities that are the most violent, they're also the communities that have the highest rates of unemployment, the lowest levels of educational attainment, the highest poverty rates. All of these things go together. And I think the police in particular need to exercise great care in how these communities get policed so that there isn't the feeling that the police are the enemy or an occupying force. And that takes work. And we're definitely not there yet. As I said, one of the most troubling things I found when I was a member of the City Council was the millions and millions and millions of dollars we were paying to ordinary citizens who were mistreated by the police in one way or another. Not always killed, but mistreated by the police. And while I believe that this fund of money to pay reparations for the victims of the Burge cases is a good thing, it was never clear to me what exactly happened to police officers that were found to be in the wrong in these cases, what kind of professional development they had to undertake, what kind of sanctions were exercised against them. And in the Laquan McDonald case, the officer who allegedly fired this entire magazine, 16 rounds, into a young man in the presence of other officers who didn't even draw their guns and therefore did not apparently feel that they were in any danger. That officer had previously was the officer in a situation where the city paid the victim of his actions hundreds of thousands of dollars. So clearly this was somebody who had a troubled background in the police department. And the question is, why was that officer still on the street?
This is Political Forum, a live interactive call-in program. Our special guest tonight is Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. We invite you to flex your activism muscles by picking up the phone and joining the conversation. President Preckwinkle is ready for your questions and your comments. We have a few minutes left. We're at 312-738-1060, the number at the bottom of your screen. You mentioned your service for 19 years in the City Council and representing the 4th Ward. And to switch gears to something I think is more positive, I understand on May 12th, President Obama may make a significant announcement about his library and museum. And I'm curious if you have observations about what the museum and library might mean for the city and county, and if you have a bold prediction about whether it might be Washington Park or Jackson Park.
I'm not going to predict, so I'm a history teacher by profession. I think this is wonderful for the South Side of Chicago, an opportunity to have a presidential library. I encourage all of you to go see the Presidential Library in Springfield, Abraham Lincoln's Presidential Library and Museum. It's a fascinating place, and people of all ages, I think, would enjoy it. And I hope that the Presidential Library that our Chicagoan, President Obama, will construct, I would bet in Washington Park, but anyway, will be the same kind of draw. And clearly, as the first African-American president of the United States, his library and museum will attract people not only from all over the country, but all over the world.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to get the thoughts of President Preckwinkle. What are her thoughts in regards to a mental health treatment program versus being placed in a criminal justice system, which seems to be overwrought with a bunch of problems?
Similar sort of question.
Sure. At the moment, we have about 8,000 people in our jail. We've made real progress in reducing the number of people in our jail awaiting trial. And again, only 10% of the people in our jail are serving a sentence. 90% are awaiting trial. So we've reduced our jail population from 10,000, which is average for more than 20 years, to 8,000. And I'm very pleased by that progress, and grateful in particular to Chief Judge Evans and those judges in bond court who have been carefully assessing the people who come before them and have moved in the direction of freeing people on their own recognizance or on electronic monitoring rather than detaining them in the jail.
President Preckwinkle, we'd like to thank you for joining us again. We appreciate you being so accessible. CAN TV is television for the people and by the people, so thank you for being here.
Thank you for joining us.
In order for our democracy to thrive, we need an informed and engaged citizenry. So we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and for calling in, and we invite you to join us next week, Wednesday at 7 o'clock, for the next edition of Political Forum. Good night.
Good night.